Sports is not always about fair games and honest efforts. Sometimes it involves dubious tricks, shocking frauds, and massive scandals. Hang on, as here come the times when famous athletes were caught in controversies that led to the most dramatic scandals in the history of sports. Tonya Harding. Once a promising figure skater, Tonya Harding became embroiled in one of the most infamous moments in the sport's history. She had established herself as a champion after winning the 1989 Skate America competition and being crowned the United States champion in 1991 and 1994. However, her accomplishments were tarnished when her 1991 and 1994 World Silver medals were stripped just before the 94 Olympic Winter Games. The reason? Her skating rival, Nancy Kerrigan, was brutally attacked with a metal pole, causing her to cry out in agony. Many were shocked to learn that Harding might have played a role in the attack. Prior to the incident, the two athletes had built up a fierce rivalry, competing against each other in the '92 Olympic Games in France, where Harding placed fourth and Kerrigan took bronze. Despite their public praise, they were both vying for a spot on the U.S. Olympic team. After a thorough investigation, authorities discovered that Harding's ex-husband, Jeff Gillooly, had hired the assailant to club Kerrigan's knee to prevent her from competing. Gillooly accepted a plea bargain and testified against Harding, leading to her conviction for hindering the investigation into the incident. She was sentenced to 3 years probation, a $160,000 fine, and 500 hours of community service, in addition to a lifetime ban from the United States Figure Skating Association. Despite her initial denial, Harding's role in the attack continues to be a stain on her legacy. Tom Williams. Have you heard about Tom Williams, the brainy rugby player who used his smarts in a not-so-smart way? Let me tell you the story. Tom was a winger for the Harlequin FC, a big deal in rugby. But he made a grave mistake during a crucial match against Leinster on April 12, 2009. The Quins were down 6-5 and needed to bring back their star kicker Nick Evans to avoid losing. The problem was Evans had already been taken off the field, and the rules stated that they needed a player with a bloody injury to make another substitution. That's when Tom got a little too clever for his own good. He faked an injury using a blood capsule, running off the pitch and spitting what looked like blood. Sneaky, right? He even gave a little wink to his team bench as he went. But as it turns out, the other club's doctor suspected something was up and asked to see the injury. Tom was caught red-handed, pun intended, when they discovered the injury was fake. He was hit with a 1-year ban, which was later reduced to 4 months, and the club was fined a whopping 260,000 British pounds. But the punishment didn't stop there. The coach, Dean Richards, was banned from rugby for 3 years, and the matchday doctor, Wendy Chapman, was suspended for her role in cutting Tom's lip to fake the injury. The team physio, Steph Brennan, also faced suspension, but eventually won an appeal after 2 long years. Gaylord Perry. Perry played for several teams between 1962 and 1983, including the Giants, Indians, Rangers, Yankees, Padres, and Mariners. He won 20 games 5 times, struck out 200 batters 8 times, and even registered 3,000 strikeouts, making him one of the best of his era. But here's the thing. He was also known for throwing the illegal pitch known as the spitball. This pitch was outlawed in 1920 because it was too difficult to control, but Perry was able to get away with it for years. He would doctor baseballs by adding Vaseline to his uniform under the bill of his cap. He would touch various parts of his body to moisten the ball's surface, just enough to make his pitches nearly impossible to hit. He was caught only once in his career, during a game against the Boston Red Sox in 1982, and was suspended for just 10 days. Despite this, he was still elected into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1991. Interestingly, his plaque in the Hall of Fame doesn't mention the accusations of him throwing spitballs, even though he talked about it in his autobiography. He claimed to have learned the trick from another pitcher and only used it in the past. Marion Jones. You might remember Marion Jones as the American track and field star who absolutely dominated at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney, Australia. She snagged 5 impressive medals, 3 golds and 2 bronze, and quickly became a household name. But things took a turn when Jones was implicated in a massive doping scandal involving over 20 high-profile athletes, including her ex-husband, C.J. Hunter. Despite never failing a drug test, Jones was caught up in a federal investigation in 2003 by the Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative. At first, she vehemently denied any involvement in doping, but in 2006, she tested positive for banned substances and came clean about her steroid use, both before and after the Sydney Olympics. The fallout was intense. Jones was stripped of all her medals and results from September 1st, 2001, and suspended from track and field for 2 years. She even served 6 months in prison for making false statements to federal investigators. To make matters worse, Jones was also involved in a check fraud scheme related to her drug use, which she reportedly admitted to before the 2000 Olympics. Yikes. Jones tried to make a comeback in basketball, signing with the Tulsa Shock of the WNBA in 2010, but her career was short-lived. She was cut after just 15 games into the season. It's a sad story for sure. Jones was once a shining star of the athletic world, but her legacy will always be tainted by her involvement in one of the biggest doping scandals in history. David Robertson. If you're a golf fan, you've probably heard of David Robertson, the Scottish pro who played with finesse and class. But did you know that he was once caught up in one of the biggest cheating scandals the sport has ever seen? Back in 1985, during the qualifying matches for the British Open Championship in Kent, Robertson was accused of moving his ball to a better spot at least 5 times. And get this, he did it by placing the marker on his putter instead of on the actual spot. Sneaky, right? Unfortunately for Robertson, his playing partners weren't fooled. One of the caddies even claimed that he moved the ball up to 10 feet closer to the hole each time. Yikes. As you can imagine, this wasn't the first time Robertson had been caught bending the rules. In fact, he had already been disqualified from 4 other tournaments throughout his career, for everything from a wrongly marked card to improperly marking a ball on the green. But this time, the consequences were much more severe. Robertson was banned from the Pro Tour for a whopping 20 years and slapped with a 5,000-pound fine. Talk about a harsh penalty. It just goes to show how seriously professional golf takes cheating. So, if you're ever tempted to fudge your scorecard or sneakily move your ball, think twice, or risk facing the same fate as poor old David Robertson. Eric Cantona. Let's talk about Eric Cantona, the former Manchester United striker who played a huge role in the team's most successful period. However, his legacy is now marred by a shocking incident that has gone down in football history. In 1995, during a match against Crystal Palace, Cantona launched a kung fu kick at a fan in the stands after being given a red card and sent off. This behavior was out of character for the Frenchman, who had previously been a hero at Old Trafford, helping to win 5 league titles after long losses. He had already been in trouble for kicking a ball toward the crowd and not following the rules. While it's true that the fan had been verbally abusing Cantona, that's no excuse for his violent response. Athletes are role models and should control their emotions, but fans should also refrain from provoking them. Cantona was banned for 9 months, but he never showed any remorse for his actions. In fact, he said that the fan shouldn't be at games, and even joked that he should have kicked him harder. Despite the seriousness of this incident, it has become a part of football culture with a less serious tone. Let's all remember that sports should be a positive and respectful environment for everyone involved. Nelson Piquet Jr. Nelson Piquet Jr.'s F1 career suddenly stopped when he was implicated in a scandal that rocked the racing world. As the son of 3-time F1 champion Nelson Piquet, he had big shoes to fill. Unfortunately, his career took a nosedive after he was found guilty of causing a deliberate crash during the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. He purposely crashed to cause the safety car to come out, giving his teammate Fernando Alonso an advantage. Alonso went on to win the race from a lowly 15th place on the grid. Piquet Jr. later claimed he was acting on Alonso's instructions, but it was too late. He was dropped by Renault, and his F1 career was effectively over. The scandal didn't end there. FIA, the governing body of Formula One, investigated Renault and charged them with conspiracy. They were disqualified from the sport, but the ban was suspended for 2 years. Flavio Briatore, Renault's managing director, was banned indefinitely. Briatore later returned to the sport in 2022 as a Formula One ambassador, but both men agreed to not work in F1 events for a specified period after entering into a settlement with the governing body. It was a messy affair, and one that left a stain on Piquet Jr.'s career. While he initially described the crash as a simple mistake, it later became clear that there was much more to the story. In the high-pressure world of Formula One, it's crucial to maintain the integrity and avoid such controversies. Floyd Landis. Floyd Landis is a legendary American cyclist who was involved in a doping scandal that shook the world. In the 2006 Tour de France, he was in the lead before stage 16, but lost 8 minutes and seemed to be out of the race. However, he made a stunning comeback in stage 17, which helped him regain the lead. After the stage 19 time trial, he was crowned the winner, and celebrations were in full swing. But his victory was short-lived when his urine test results returned positive for an unusually high ratio of testosterone to epitestosterone. Landis denied any wrongdoing, but was suspended from professional cycling and dismissed from his team. Despite maintaining his innocence, Landis was banned for 2 years in order to pay $100,000 in costs. The International Cycling Union stripped him of his 2006 Tour de France title, and he became the second winner in history to be disqualified after Maurice Guerin. However, Landis would later confess to doping in 2010 and even accuse other athletes like Levi Leipheimer and Dave Zabriskie, both American riders, of doping as well. Lance Armstrong, his former teammate, supported him and claimed that the process that led to his conviction was biased. Danny Almonte. Danny Almonte was the talk of the town during the 2001 Little League Baseball World Series.
185 guys. I couldn't be better than one of them.
His exceptional pitching skills helped his team reach the semifinals, but it wasn't long before the star player was embroiled in a scandal. Reporters discovered that Almonte was actually 2 years older than the maximum age limit for players. When officials were contacted about the age rumors, Almonte's team supplied an official birth certificate that stated he was born in 1989. But a Dominican reporter discovered that there were actually 2 official certificates with identical information except for the birth year. One was handwritten and filed in 1987, while the other was typed and filed in 2000. It was later revealed that Almonte's father, a mayoral staffer, falsified his birth certificates. The Little League Charter Committee recommended that Almonte's team forfeit its wins, and they became the second team to be stripped of their wins after reaching the semifinals. Instead of blaming Almonte, the league put the blame on the adults in his life. In response, the league implemented new rules requiring birth certificates to be filed within 30 days of the player's date of birth. While Almonte's fame may have been short-lived, his story serves as a reminder that the sports world is not immune to scandal. Reggie Bush. Reggie Bush is a household name in American football. He made his mark playing college football for USC and won the Heisman Trophy as the country's most outstanding player. He became one of the best college football players of all time, with a record of 3,169 rushing yards, 1,301 receiving yards, 25 rushing touchdowns, and 13 receiving touchdowns. But his success could have been more lived. In 2010, he received harsh sanctions from the NCAA for allegedly receiving over $300,000 in benefits from a marketing agency during his college days, which included a house in San Diego. Despite denying the allegations, he had to return his Heisman Trophy, thus losing his college record. The NCAA investigated further and found him guilty of receiving benefits, which was a gross violation of their policies. USC was placed on probation for 4 years and had to vacate all games that Bush played in, including their Orange Bowl victory and entire wins in the 2005 season. The NCAA also forced USC to disassociate itself from Bush. Bush expressed his disappointment over the sanctions, but later, the NCAA ruled that players could make money from their name and image. With this new development, he started advocating for reinstating his Heisman Trophy. Despite the controversy surrounding his college career, Bush remains an icon in American football, and his contributions to the sport will always be remembered. Rosie Ruiz. Rosie Ruiz's story is one of the most infamous tales in the history of marathons. In 1979, she made a mark by qualifying for the Boston Marathon, which was a significant accomplishment in itself. But her success in the race was even more astonishing, given that she managed to break the female marathon record with an unbelievable time of 2 hours, 31 minutes, and 56 seconds. Her incredible feat made headlines and earned her worldwide fame overnight. However, the victory was short-lived, as doubts began to surface about her performance. She needed help to answer simple questions about running intervals or splits, and her heart rate readings indicated that she was not a trained athlete. Moreover, other runners who had been around her during the race claimed they didn't see her at any point. The truth finally emerged that Ruiz had taken shortcuts in the course and didn't run the entire marathon. She was stripped of her title and disqualified from the race. The incident would go down in history as one of the most embarrassing cases of cheating in marathon history. After the scandal, Ruiz faded into obscurity, and it wasn't until she died in 2019 that her story gained attention again. Her legacy remains a cautionary tale of the consequences of cheating and how one dishonest act can tarnish a lifetime of accomplishments. Diego Maradona. Diego Maradona was a legendary footballer who made history by scoring the infamous Hand of God goal in the quarterfinals of the 1986 World Cup. During the game against England, he used his hand to score the goal. Which is how it became known as the Hand of God. Maradona initially claimed that he scored it with his head and a little with the Hand of God, citing it as revenge for Argentina's loss to England 4 years prior. However, a photographer caught the moment when Maradona clearly hit the ball with his fist, leading to much controversy. Years later, in a television interview, Maradona confessed to having scored the goal with his hand. This revelation was widely reported in the media and stirred up more controversy. A few days later, Maradona denied the confession, alleging that he had been misquoted. It's worth noting that Maradona was likely the most unfairly treated player, despite covering double the average distance of top-level players. He received no advanced protection from referees, which may have contributed to his infamous Hand of God goal. Pete Rose. Pete Rose was an absolute force to be reckoned with in Major League Baseball from 1963 to 1986. Fans knew him as Charlie Hustle, and he was celebrated for his 3 World Series titles, a National League MVP, 3 batting titles, 2 Golden Gloves, and the Rookie of the Year award, among many others. Rose played a whopping 3,562 games and collected 4,256 hits, both all-time records. However, in 1989, while managing the Cincinnati Reds, Rose found himself embroiled in a scandal that ultimately led to his permanent ban from baseball. It was alleged that Rose had bet on baseball games, including games involving his own team. Following a thorough investigation, he was found guilty and banned from baseball. Rose appealed the decision, but it was upheld. In 2004, he finally admitted to betting on baseball games while playing for and managing the Reds, but he maintained that he never bet against his own team. Despite the ongoing debate about his actions, it's clear that Rose violated MLB rules and was rightfully punished. Dora Roten. You may have heard about Dora Roten, a German athlete who competed in the women's high jump. But what's so scandalous about that, you might ask? Well, it turns out that Dora's gender was the subject of much controversy at the time. Initially thought to be a girl, a doctor later discovered that Dora was actually male. However, due to being raised as a girl and accepting it, Dora had even worn girls' clothing during their formative years and had competed in female sports. Despite this, Dora went on to participate in the 1936 Olympics and even placed fourth in the high jump. But it wasn't until 1939 at the European Athletics Championships that Dora broke the world record. However, things took a turn when Dora was arrested, and further testing revealed intersex genitalia that had a coarse and scarred stripe. Since officials could not establish that Dora had intended to profit from the fraud, Dora returned their medals and was stripped of their world record. Dora then decided to retire from sports and even changed their name to Heinrich at their father's request. It's a story that's both fascinating and heartbreaking, reminding us of the importance of understanding and acceptance. Ty Cobb. Ty Cobb is a name that immediately conjures up images of an exceptional baseball player, and for good reason. Over his 22 years with the Detroit Tigers, he led the league in batting 12 times, an incredible feat in and of itself. However, his career was cut short due to his involvement in game-fixing scandals in the 1919 season. At the time, such scandals were all too common in baseball, and Cobb was accused of being involved in a fixed series against Cleveland. According to Dutch Leonard and Tris Speaker, he was implicated in the scandal, with Cleveland players wanting the Tigers to finish ahead of the Yankees. Cobb and some other players saw the chance to make some extra cash, and Detroit ended up winning, with the Yankees finishing behind them. Cobb later expressed regret for his actions in a letter to Leonard, but since there was no public pressure to investigate the scandal, he was never punished. He eventually joined the Philadelphia A's, where he went on to surpass 4,000 hits. Despite his exceptional talent, his involvement in the scandal remains a stain on his legacy. If you found this video on the fascinating scandals of sports history informative and enjoyable, please hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for more exciting content. Also, leave a comment down below sharing your thoughts and which scandal surprised you the most. Thanks for watching.